Hello there guys, welcome to another of my live videos. So just going to give you some more transfer news regarding Manchester United, and it is good, like I mentioned, that we are making plans for the January transfer window, because of obviously we are all aware that more investment is needed in the squad, and these still deficiencies in the squad that do need to be addressed. Like I said, Manchester United do need a striker, someone, that can come in and assure us goals, and someone who can be more effective in the box without a shadow of a doubt, because, we have been struggling to score goals this season. We've also been struggling to create chances. That's also another element of concern. But like I did mention, we do look very exposed in that attacking line following the dismissal of Romelu Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez, and it was a shame that we didn't recruit a replacement for Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez. But I think, Solskjaer is orchestrating on bringing two forwards in January. Don't forget, during the summer was in search for a right winger. I don't really think we need a right winger, to be quite honest with you, but I think definitely we need a midfielder, and that's another one of the priority areas where Manchester United do need to strengthen up, because we are missing creative impetus in that midfield. And I think Solskjaer has been assured that he will be given money to spend in January. I think he did say he's keen on continuing the policy of recruiting young British players, like he did do in the summer. But I credit Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He did recommend 3 good players to the squad during the summer. We spent nearly £150 million on Daniel James and Wan-Bissaka and on Harry Maguire, and they've all enjoyed fantastic starts to their Manchester United careers. So it's surprising that they've all settled in, really, really quick. But it was good during the summer that we did address some of the problematic areas, and that we got that experienced centre half in. So I think we defensively, look slightly better. We also got that right back in, but during the summer we didn't address all the problematic areas. We didn't address all the problematic areas, but like I said, I think we need at least 5 to 6 more signings if we are to be back to being a competitive elite level football club. And a massive rebuild is needed at the club, and obviously, Solskjaer obviously is aware that the majority of this team isn't his team. The vast majority of this team is Jose Mourinho's, because Jose Mourinho did recommend 11 players into the football club, and now obviously Solskjaer is inheriting the vast majority of them. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who Manchester United can recommend in January. But I do believe we'll do the vast majority of our transfer business next summer, so we'll probably look to sign 1 or 2 players in January, and then I think we'll try to sign quite a few more next summer. But I probably do believe anyway that Solskjaer will get time to make further more investment in his squad, because I think some people believe us getting rid of Solskjaer now wouldn't solve a lot of problems at the football club. But despite our disastrous start to the season, Ed Woodward, of course, insists that he's still backing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 100%. Obviously Solskjaer's got the same perception as Ed Woodward. He still feels as though he's the right man to elevate Manchester United forward. This is what Solskjaer does feel. But we are enjoying our worst start to a Premier League season, don't forget, for 3 decades. But like I mentioned, I do credit Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the last 2 games. We tactically got it right, and we have showed some tactical flexibility. And I think, with this change of formation now, this could turn Manchester United's season around, because I think we do look much better with 3 at the back. And Solskjaer's obviously had his overarching view on this new formation. He said it's working very, very well, and it also enables him, to stick with 2 attackers up top. Because don't forget, for the majority of this season, we have been going with that 4-2-3-1 formation. Obviously, that system, and that hasn't been working out. So I did say if Solskjaer, can maybe try a few different elements, then maybe things his managerial tenure at Manchester United can turn him around. But we've done really, really well in the last 2 games. But yeah, so there has been some news coming out recently saying that reportedly Manchester United are ready to spend up to £125 million, I think, in January on Thomas Muller from Bayern Munich and Kai Havertz from Bayer Leverkusen. So 2 Bundesliga players on our agenda. Now, reportedly Bayer Leverkusen, if they are to do any business, with Kai Havertz. Reportedly, they're demanding around £85 million. So that's obviously, a substantial amount. Don't get me wrong, he would fit Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's transfer strategy perfectly. He is only 20 years of age. I think he's been in the senior squad by Leverkusen since around 2016. Obviously became the club's youngest ever debut in the Bundesliga. I think in total he's made 117 appearances for Bayer Leverkusen and scored around 31 goals. I think he's been a Bayer Leverkusen overall now for nearly a decade, because he joined their youth academy in 2010, and I think he was in their youth academy for a good number of years, around 6 or 7 years. But yeah, he's a two-footed midfielder, by the way, so he's good with both feet. He's actually predominantly a midfielder, and he's a player that can also create chances. He is under contract with Bayer Leverkusen until 2022, so he's one of the players on our agenda. So there has been a lot of talks about him, going on. And give you some news regarding Thomas Muller now. Man United have been long admirers of Thomas Muller. I think he was also on our agenda, back under the David Moyes era, who was also, in for Muller. Now, obviously, Muller is 30 years of age, so that's my element of concern about recommending him. He's regarding his age, but he's enjoyed a fantastic career with Bayern Munich. Obviously, he joined their youth academy in 2000. He was in their youth academy for around 8 years. Then obviously he made his senior debut in 2008, and since his senior debut in 2008, he's gone on to make 495 appearances in all competitions for Bayern Munich. I think he scored 186 goals and registered around 171 assists, and he's also won around 21 trophies during his time so far with Bayern Munich. But he's been there overall now for nearly 2 decades, and nearly been in the senior squad for 12 years. He's also, his versatility is very, very good. He's Thomas Muller's. He's actually predominantly a forward, I think, but he can also play as a midfielder. But he can play in a variety of roles. He can play as an attacking midfielder. He can play as a second forward. He can play as a centre forward. He can also play on either flank. So do you think he would be the right calibre player for Manchester United? But anyway, he has been rumours of Thomas Muller, possibly leaving Bayern Munich. He is still under contract with them until 2021. He's also gone and made 100 appearances for the German national team. But yeah, his work rate's good, his stamina's good, he can score goals, he can provide, he can create chances. So yeah, maybe he would be the right player for Man United, and he probably, would be a cheap solution. We'll also take that into account. Probably, Bayern Munich would demand that the one around £40 million for the player. So yeah, they are two Bundesliga stars on our current agenda. So just wanted to give you the latest news regarding that. But it is looking very, very probable anyway, that we're going to sign Mario Mandzukic in January, because obviously, there was a lot of speculation earlier on this week. Early on this week, that was, yes, saying that, Man United are going to sign Mario Mandzukic in January. He obviously, he's had his wages slashed in half. His wage demands from £300,000 a week, to 150 grand a week, in order to make his move to Manchester United. Now, don't forget, we inquired about getting Mario Mandzukic towards the back end of the transfer window, the summer transfer window, but obviously, we didn't end up, getting him. Now, my own element of concern about us, recommending Mario Mandzukic, that obviously he's 33 years of age, and he has not got long left in him. He's probably only got like a couple of years left in his footballing career. But I think it would be a good thing to recommend him in, because he could show the likes of Dan James, Martial, and Marcus Rashford, how to be more effective in the box. And he has had a really, really good career. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, now into his 5th season here with Juventus, but he's actually now served his 2 requirements at Juventus, because he has initially lost his place in the team, because since the recommendation of Maurizio Sarri, obviously he hasn't played a single minute of football for Juventus, as you know, Mario Mandzukic. He's still under contract with them, by the way, until 2021. But again, he's a cheaper solution. Man United will only have to pay around £10 million for his services. I think it did say Man United are willing to give him around an 18-month contract, and I think he probably could emulate into Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But actually, I think for the entirety of his career so far, Mario Mandzukic has never played in the Premier League. In total for Juventus, he has made 162 appearances and scored 44 goals. But yeah, it's looking very, very probable we're going to sign him in January. But Solskjaer said once he completes the transfer of Mandzukic, he also wants to recommend another forward in, as he has confirmed. But yeah, so it's looking like we're going to sign him. Obviously, we do know that there's been a lot of talk about James Maddison, going on recently. He's another midfielder on our agenda. And I think, like I mentioned, James Maddison, would be the right calibre player for Manchester United. Only 22 years of age. Obviously, well proven now in the Premier League. James Maddison now is into his 2nd season, with Leicester. And he's enjoyed a really, really good start to this season as James Maddison. Like I mentioned, predominantly an attacking midfielder. We've probably seen him as an adequate replacement for Paul Pogba, because I still probably presume that Paul Pogba, does want out of Manchester United. But either way, even if Paul Pogba was to stay, we still need at least one midfielder. We do need to recruit a replacement for Ander Herrera, without a shadow of a doubt. Some people believe, that we need 2 central midfielders. But yeah, so this news regarding James Maddison, was actually, stemming not too long ago, from a reliable journalist called David Ornstein. Now, he said, he'd been told by Al Pies allegedly that Man United are expected to sign James Maddison within the next year. Now, we are aware that obviously, he will cost the club a substantial amount of money. We'll probably have to pay, in the excess of around maybe 60 or 70 million pounds to get him, because Leicester, obviously, don't want to lose James Maddison, because obviously Leicester have lost, quite a few of their imperative players in recent years. They lost Harry Maguire to us during the summer. They also lost Raheem Mahrez to City last summer. They also lost N'Golo Kante and Danny Drinkwater. So I think Leicester, would be reluctant to sell him. Now, obviously, I think Leicester are obviously keen on trying to get him a new contract. James Maddison has still got 4 years left on his current deal with Leicester. But yeah, James Maddison, would be the right solution, like I mentioned, because he can score goals, like he's proven with Leicester. He can create chances, because look what he produced, in his debut season last season. He actually, created more chances than any other player in the Premier League. I think he created around 100 chances. And, Leicester got him for a reasonable figure. Leicester only paid around £20 million to him from Norwich last summer. But I think we was in for James Maddison during the summer. I think we was tentatively linked to him. What I mean in that aspect is that he wasn't one of our main priority targets, but I'd love him to come in, and plus he's British and he is only 22 years of age. I think quite a few teams have been tracking him anywhere since he was a teenager at Coventry, because obviously he began his career with Coventry, and I think he also had a loan spell with Aberdeen. So he's another player on our agenda. If we are to get James Maddison, I think it's probably more probable, that we'll get him next summer rather than January. I do believe that Jadon Sancho's still on our agenda. Recent reports did say that Liverpool were interested in Jadon Sancho. Now, he actually could leave Borussia Dortmund next year, believe it or not. And again, I think he would be the right calibre player for Manchester United and, Jadon Sancho. Don't forget, we was in for him during the course of the summer. We actually identified him as our number 1 priority target back in January. But our move got scrimmaged for Jadon Sancho, with our failure to qualify for the Champions League. And I did take that into account. That was one of the main reasons that went against us during the summer. Because obviously, if you're not in Champions League football, then it's going to be hard to attract players to the elite level. And this is why I did say this season, season, it's very imperative for us, to get back into that top four, so we can get back into the Champions League. Obviously, top four for Man United at the moment is looking very, very unlikely. It's looking very, very unlikely. But, Jadon Sancho is predominantly a right winger. He can also play as an attacker. He can also play centrally, but he is predominantly a right winger. And we are aware, if we are to reignite our interest in Jadon Sancho, it'll cost the club a substantial amount. We'll probably have to pay in the excess of around £100 million. Borussia Dortmund admitted not too long ago that Jadon Sancho could leave, for a big club, because I think there's quite a few clubs, that are in for the player. But Borussia Dortmund basically got him for next to no. They only paid around £7 or £8 million from Man City. But obviously now, he's in his third season at Borussia Dortmund, and reflect on his impressive performances in the couple of years he's been with Dortmund. His valuation obviously now has persistently grown. He's still under contract with Dortmund until 2022, I think it is. But the beneficial thing is also that he did play for Man City before he went to Dortmund, so he's had experience of playing in the Premier League. He did serve a couple of years with Man City, but obviously he didn't get assured them first team opportunities, and this is the main factor reason why he left City to join Borussia Dortmund. But I think he's unsure, where his future, does hold. But I still believe he's on Man United's agenda. So we have got so many players on our agenda, who we could go in for in January. But definitely, furthermore investment is needed in the squad. So that's the latest news regarding that, and we have got a big game today against Norwich at Carroll Road. Obviously, you did see my preview for that game. I did it a couple of days ago, and I did say yesterday on my video that I think this is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's last chance. I think we have to win today, to keep our hopes up, for that top four, because we're now currently sitting 15th in the league, and I think we're just 2 points above relegation, and we're actually sitting 10 points behind top four, because obviously Chelsea did beat Burnley by 4 goals to 2 yesterday. So I think we do have to win this game. Where this is going to be our 10th game of the Premier League season. We've obviously played 9 at the moment. We've only won 2, we've drawn 4, and we've lost 3. So in that aspect, we've only registered 10 points from a possible 27, and we know that's nowhere near good enough, to our standards. But Solskjaer, I watched some of his press conference, and I interpreted some of the stuff that he had mentioned, during his press conference, and he's actually praised Norwich quite a few times. He says Norwich show a lot of courage. He mentioned the courage is showed in the 4-1 defeat to Liverpool at the beginning of the season. They also do like to play their own way. Don't forget, Norwich did beat Manchester City earlier on in this season by 3 goals to 2, but they haven't won a game since then. But we usually do well against Norwich, to be quite honest with you. I think we've lost on 2 occasions at Carrow Road. We lost there back in 2012. We also lost there back in 2005. So we've only lost there on 2 occasions. But Norwich are really, really struggling. Obviously they're sitting 19th in the league. So obviously they are in the relegation zone. So obviously from a Norwich perspective, it's also very, very it is a game for them that they also must win. But the last meeting between Manchester United and Norwich was back in 2016, and it was under Louis van Gaal's it was under Louis van Gaal's second season at the football club, and we did win that game by 1 goal to 0. It was a goal from Juan Mata, and I think this. I feel as though that this game could be in similar fashion to the one back in 2016. So I think it could be 1-0, or it could be a 1-1. But it's definitely a game that Manchester United do need to win. But we've obviously had a lot of injuries. Obviously Norwich themselves have had a lot of injuries. So I expect Man United to win, but the game could go either way. But I do believe in this game, like I mentioned, Solskjaer will stick with 3 at the back. because that formation, does seem to be working. And I credit Solskjaer as well, because I'm surprised that, he didn't revert back to the 4-2-3-1 against Partizan Belgrade. And it was a very, very good win, like I mentioned, against Partizan Belgrade. We did beat them by 1-0 Obviously, that ended 11 away games without a win. Because that was our first away win, since the PSG game last season, when we did produce that miraculous comeback in the Champions League. And that's obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's most iconic moment as manager. But it wasn't the best of performances against Partizan Belgrade. I thought there was some, good individual performances. But, the only shot on target re-registered was the actual goal from Anthony Martial from the spot. So we need to start, creating more chances, to be quite honest with you. But in the game, we did, passed the ball well. We dominated the possession, because we had the vast majority of the possession. But it's good now that we're sitting top of Group L. We haven't lost yet in the Europa League. We've won 2 out of 3. We've registered 7 from possible 9. Which is obviously very, very important. But yeah, and I thought, Brandon Williams was the man of the match against Partizan Belgrade. And like I mentioned on video yesterday, I think like the likes of Brandon Williams and James Garner, they can earn first team promotions at Manchester United. Meaning, obviously, get more chances. But it was also good to see, James Garner making his full debut for the football club against Partizan Belgrade. So it was a surprise solution, actually, that Solskjaer played with 2 teenagers. I didn't think he would have done that. But without a shadow of a doubt, Brandon Williams was absolutely fantastic, against Partizan Belgrade. And I think now there's a lot of Man United fans demanding that, we should start Brandon Williams today against Norwich. Because I think now, a lot of people believe, he's a better option than Luke Shaw. Obviously, we do know that Luke Shaw is out with injury. Luke Shaw's out with a hamstring injury. Luke Shaw's been out since the 2-1 home defeat to Crystal Palace. I don't think he's far away now from regaining full fitness. And I think, Luke Shaw's mainly had a good career with Man United, except, the amount of injuries sustained. Obviously, with his fallout under managers. Well, he had a bad fallout under Jose Mourinho, so he had a bad spell under Mourinho. But prior to that, I think he's mainly done well. But a lot of people believe, like I mentioned, Brandon Williams now is a much better solution than him. He's predominantly a left back, Brandon Williams. It was also good that I got given him a new contract, which was obviously very, very good to see. So a lot of Man United fans are demanding that we should play Brandon Williams. But whether Solskjaer does or not, I do not know. I think actually Solskjaer has recently come out and suggested that he is ready to play the youngsters in the Premier League, which is obviously very, very good. And that's another thing I credit Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for. He has got a lot of trustworthy in his young upcoming players. We've obviously got a lot of young players in the squad anyway, like I mentioned, that are developing and trying to improve at Manchester United. I do believe some of the young upcoming players, are very reliable and they will end up becoming a success at the football club. I have got some element of concerns about certain young upcoming players, and this is why I did say it would be beneficial for us, to maybe loan some of the young upcoming players out in January. I've got element of concerns about Chon. He's not. I don't think he hasn't got to that level yet. I think he's definitely totally comparison to the likes of Greenwood and Brandon Williams and Tuanzebe. What I've seen anyway. Chon's only played a couple of games this season. I don't really have a perception on James Garner at the moment as yet. I need to see him more in action. He was actually good against Partizan Belgrade, but that was his first appearance he made for the football club since the 3-1 away win at Crystal Palace last season. So we'll obviously take that into account. But I can definitely assure that, I think Mason Greenwood will become a success at the football club. Mason Greenwood hasn't played recently, to be quite honest with you, which is obviously, a surprise. These question marks around Solskjaer, why he hasn't, yet started Mason Greenwood from the start in the Premier League. I think so far this season, Greenwood has made around 6 substitute appearances. But, he can play on the right, can Greenwood, but, obviously, he can also play as a number 9, and we have got quite a few players, that can play as a number 9. Greenwood, Rashford and Anthony Martial. But Greenwood is a very, very good player, and a few times this season he's produced the goods. He scored scored against Rochdale in the Carabao Cup. He also scored against FC Mestana in the Europa League, and he only just turned 18 years of age at the beginning of this month. So I think by the time he's 23, 24, he can be a world-class centre forward for Manchester United. Obviously with Tuanzebe, like I mentioned, very, very good player, done well in the games he has played in this season. I don't think, Tuanzebe, will be playing today, because I think he's a huge doubt for today. Don't forget, Tuanzebe is out with a hip injury. Obviously, he sustained a hip injury during the warm-up, for the game against Liverpool, because Tuanzebe was initially named in the starting 11 against Liverpool, but due to the hip injury that occurred, he didn't, obviously, Marcus Rojo had taken his place in the team. But I think it's unknown at the moment, when, Tuanzebe, will be back, but I think, he's going to miss the game. He's going to miss the game. But, we have still got quite a lot of injuries, by the way. Some players have regained their full fitness. But, it did say today, we could miss up to 6 players, for today's game. Solskjaer did definitely assure that Paul Pogba, will be missing the game. He confirmed this prior to the Partizan Belgrade game. I think he confirmed this on Wednesday that Paul Pogba is set to miss the game against Norwich. Obviously, Paul Pogba as well didn't make the trip to Belgrade. Paul Pogba, I think, missed 7 of the last 9 games for Manchester United with this ongoing foot injury that's been surrounding the player for a matter of weeks. But I think, he shouldn't be far away now from regaining full fitness. Whether Paul Pogba will be ready for the Chelsea game or not in the Carabao Cup midweek, I do not know. But even though Paul Pogba's mainly enjoyed a difficult career with Manchester United, since he rejoined from Juventus back in 2016, we still know how much of an imperative player he is, because you can tell the difference in that midfield when Paul Pogba's playing, and obviously when you take him out of the equation. Yeah, so he's definitely not going to be playing. Nemanja Matic and Luke Shaw, they're obviously both not going to be playing. Like I mentioned, Nemanja Matic obviously has been out with a minor problem. Matic obviously has lost his place in the team anywhere, mainly due to his inconsistency, and I think he's one of the players that does need to leave Manchester United, is Matic, in January or next summer. Because he's one of the problematic players, and Matic is now 31 years of age. He's now into his 3rd season as a Manchester United player, and I think he's been mainly inconsistent and not good enough. Nemanja Matic, in my opinion, too slow, makes that midfield look totally imbalanced, too predictable. Don't forget Matic's contract expires at the end of the season, but Man United do actually have an option to extend it by a further year. But he has been out with a minor problem. We know that obviously Eric Bailly's out of injury. He's out until the new year, or the end of the year. Obviously you've got Foster Mensah, who's still out with injury. Obviously got some good news regarding David De Gea. He should be playing today, should David De Gea. Obviously he didn't make the trip to Belgrade midweek, but Solskjaer did assure that David De Gea will be ready for today, which is obviously very, very good news. And obviously, as you all know, David De Gea had sustained an injury the other week. Obviously, he had to withdraw from international duty due to this leg injury that had occurred whilst he was playing for Spain. Like I mentioned, the extent of the injury was unknown at the first. But obviously, Solskjaer had revealed that the injury wasn't as severe as we first feared, so he actually ended up playing against Liverpool, which was actually a surprise, because he actually could have missed his first game for Manchester United in almost 7 years. So I'm glad, he will be obviously back. And even if David De Gea anywhere had made the trip to Belgrade, Solskjaer's preference would have been Romero over David De Gea, because Romero obviously plays mainly in the cup games and the Europa League games. Obviously, Jesse Lingard, obviously, he's now back from a hamstring problem. He's just recently recovered. I think he's another player that does need to step up to the plate, Jesse Lingard, because, like I mentioned, reflecting on his status at the football club, he should be putting much more better performances out. But it's good now that he's back from injuries. Lingard, obviously, Martial now is back, which is obviously very very good news. So at least now Anthony Martial, can add more inspiration in that attack of third of the pitch, and maybe can start scoring us more goals. Obviously, it got confirmed at the start of the season anyway that Anthony Martial has been given that number 9 shirt, because I think he seems to be more effective in that central position, even though he predominantly plays out wide on the left. Seems to be very, very effective in that central position. But I thought he enjoyed a great start to the season anyway, Martial, before he had sustained that thigh injury. But I think now with this new formation, obviously it's going to be Martial and Rashford as a partnership up front, and I think they probably will complement each other fantastically well. Martial's obviously scored 51 goals for the football club in all competitions, since he joined from Monaco, back in 2015. And Martial now is into his 5th season with the football club. So I credit him, for what he's done for Man United, and he is, still only 23 years of age, and I think he hasn't emulated to that level yet, but I do believe he will emulate, to that level, because I think there's elements of his game, that have definitely improved. He seems to have more of that finishing aspect. He seems to get more of them runs in behind. But he wasn't that effective, against Partizan Belgrade, so I will take that into account. But to be fair, he didn't, look 100%. And my perception on Rashford is that I thought Rashford, has probably had 2 good games this season. I thought he did well in the last league game against Liverpool. Obviously, scored the goal, and he caused a lot of problems, for Liverpool at the back, and he got some good runs in and that behind. But there's still improvements in his game needed. Rashford's been mainly inconsistent this season. He hasn't performed to the standards as we all expected, in comparison to his time when he first broke into the senior squad. And some people believe that, Marcus Rashford is more overrated, but, there's still improvements needed in his game. But I think, like I mentioned, this 3-5-2 formation, seems to be working well. It has actually, worked in the last 2 games, to be fair. But maybe there's still some Man United fans, saying that we should still give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer more time at the football club, because recently Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was discussing the club's difficult transition period. Obviously, he's aware that the club are in transition. That it basically is a transition season. But we should give him more time at the football club, because overall Solskjaer's been at Manchester United now for around 10 months. Overall, and you can say that Solskjaer's enjoyed difficult 7.5 months with Manchester United, because obviously we all know it's all gone wrong, since he got the job permanently. Don't forget he's on a 3-year contract with Man United. But reflecting back when Solskjaer was the interim manager, he did really really well. The results were good, the performances were good, he got the best out of these group of players, and he exceeded expectations. But since he got the job permanently, back in March, everything has just seemed to have all gone wrong. And obviously, my perception has changed, over this 7-month period regarding Solskjaer. I still don't feel as though he's the right man for Manchester United. But my perception, whilst he was interim manager, I thought at that point he was the right man, to elevate Manchester United forward. He even won his first 8 games when he first came in. He won 14 out of 19 in total. And like I said, there's some aspects of me that do credit Solskjaer. Like I said, there's obviously, some element of concerns I've got about him. Obviously, my element of concerns I've got about Solskjaer is that obviously he hasn't really got any intuition on how to manage a big football club like Manchester United. He hasn't, because he obviously, hasn't really got that managerial experience, not really to the highest level, especially because before he came to Manchester United, he won a couple of Norwegian titles with Mould. Obviously, before he was at Mould, he had a really short tenure with Cardiff. He actually, he only managed around, was it 29 or 30 games for Cardiff, and actually then got sacked from Cardiff because he ended up getting them relegated. So his pedigree, to be honest with you, is not really that good. So that's another element of concern I have got about him. Obviously for the majority of this season though, a lot of Man United fans, including me, have been criticising his tactics, because obviously for the majority of this season, I will admit, Manchester United have been tactically inept, but in the last two games, Solskjaer is totally blameless. But Solskjaer has got that proven pedigree as a player because he was a great player for Manchester United for 11 years. He flourished under Alex Ferguson's guidance and that. And obviously, one of his most iconic moments as a player, obviously, was in 1999 when he, of course, he won the club the treble. That's obviously one of the club's greatest achievements. But, he just hasn't really got that proven pedigree as a manager. Obviously, that's something that does concern me. But, Solskjaer, is aware of, the expectations. He does have to exceed at Manchester United if he is to remain in the job. He's aware of the expectations he has to exceed. And I did initially say at the start of this season, and I also mentioned it at the end of last season, that our expectations this season, like I mentioned, will be to get in that top four so we can get back into the Champions League. Despite the three signings we brought in, I still believe that this season, Man United, we're not going to mount any kind of title challenge up, or we wasn't going to win the league, because analysing our squad at the moment, it isn't good enough, to win the league. It isn't good enough, to win the league, But I think it's definitely good enough for a top four finish, if I'm going to be quite honest with you. But I just believe, from my perception, that the expectations are too high for Solskjaer at Manchester United. But obviously, the reason we went with him after the sacking of Jose Mourinho is because obviously he knows the traditions of the club and that. And this is why he was our preference at the time over Mauricio Pochettino and, Zinedine Zidane. But I think it was a mistake for Man United anyway. Giving Mulligan and Solskjaer the job, and I do feel sorry for him. In a way, because I do believe the club have put him in a very, very difficult position. And obviously we know now that managers don't get the time that they would like, because obviously this generation now, obviously back in the old generation, managers got the time that they obviously that they would like, but we know now that the boards are a lot more ruthless. But I think due to our inconsistency, I think everyone needs to take the blame for the majority of this season, reflect on our bad run of performances and results. Solskjaer's definitely been accountable for some of that. But like I do keep mentioning, I think the vast majority of the blame stems from the board. It stems from the board as the vast majority of the blame, and the board didn't back Ole Gunnar Solskjaer enough during the summer. Like I did take into the equation that the board have been a liability for several years, with their poor recruitment and their poor selection of managers. And I think the board do need to assure structural changes at the football club. And like I do keep saying, whether they can do this or not, I do not know. Some of the blame definitely stems from Ed Woodward. I think he's compatible to the board in that aspect, because I think Ed Woodward's also been a liability for several years. So you still got Man United fans, demanding Ed Woodward out of the football club. Some of the blame does stem from a lot of the players, because obviously there's a lot of players there that do need to step up to the plate. And despite the fact that a lot of players have left since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's arrival, I still believe there's definitely more players there that do need to leave Manchester United. So we need to focus as well more on the outgoings, rather than just the ingoings in January and of course next summer. I still probably believe there's another maybe 4 or 5 more players at least that need to depart Manchester United. But I think around 7 players did leave the club in the summer. Obviously Antonio Valencia left at the end of last season after he served 10 years with Man United. Obviously we saw Chris Smalling leave on loan for Roma. A few players have been loaned out, but Italy's obviously been a popular destination for the vast majority of our players that have left this summer. But Smalling went to Roma for just under 3 million. Despite the fact that Smalling left, we've still got 6 centre backs in the team. Darmian left for just over £1 million. Obviously Ander Herrera, he left on a free transfer. He went to PSG. It's very imperative that Man United do recruit a replacement for him. Obviously Fellaini left back in January for China after he served 6 years at Man United. Lukaku and Sanchez both left. They're both at Inter Milan, reuniting together. I think we loaned a couple of goalkeepers out. So yeah, a lot of players have left, since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's arrival. But definitely more problematic players at the football club. But like I mentioned, regardless of our manager is, no one is going to ever, follow Alex Ferguson's legacy. And, Solskjaer definitely, can't invoke Ferguson's legacy, to save him at Manchester United, because, we was fantastic under the Alex Ferguson era. He dominated the transfer policies, the contracts. He had 20 odd years of success with Man United. He developed a lot of young players. Obviously won the vast majority of our silverware under Alex Ferguson, because we won 38 trophies, I think, in total under Ferguson. Including 13 Premier League titles. Taking into account though, Ferguson obviously didn't settle in straight away. He didn't win out in his first 4 years at Manchester United, and after that 4-year period he was on the verge of getting the sack. I think he was one game away from getting the sack, but he didn't, and then look what he went and accomplished. So that just shows, if you give managers the time, that they can become successful and that. But I think Solskjaer believes that obviously Ferguson did obviously transform him into a winner. I just don't think Solskjaer has, I don't think he has a philosophy really. Not right for Manchester United anywhere. But he actually said during the summer that he was following Alex Ferguson's philosophy. But I know there has been a list of managers on our agenda, who could replace Solskjaer at the football club. We know now for several weeks, there has been a lot of talks about Max Allegri, and if he was to come in, he obviously, would be our fifth permanent manager since the Alex Ferguson era. I think it's unlikely he'll come in anywhere, because I think, especially for this present time, and maybe probably to the end of this season at least, the club will stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They'll give him more time, to see who else can recommend him to the football club. But there was reports the other week saying that, we've identified Max Allegri as our primary candidate to replace Solskjaer. Obviously, it said that Max Allegri the other week was in discussions with Manchester United, regarding what salary he would earn and that, and it did say he would earn around 6.5 million a year, if he was to come to Manchester United. And Max Allegri also did a few things he wanted to do if he came in. He wants to, recommend Patrice Evra as one of his coaching staff. He also wants to recommend Emre Can and Mario Mandzukic to the club. But I think he did say anywhere that he'd only take over the reigns at Manchester United if he was to be assured the job within the next few weeks. But he did say that around 3 or 4 weeks ago now, if I'm right. But I think there may be still a talk, a lot of talks, going on about it. Maybe some Man United fans believe he would be the right candidate for the football club. He'd be able to turn Manchester United around. Obviously, Max Allegri has never ever managed in the Premier League. He's actually spent the entirety of his managerial career in Italy so far. Also spent the entirety of his playing career in Italy. He stepped down as Juventus manager at the end of last season. He had around 5 years there with Juventus. Did Max Allegri. That was he had a 5-year tenure. Obviously won the vast majority of his silverware there. Got Juventus to Champions League finals, and I think he's around 52, 53 years of age. Something like that. But he's been managing anywhere overall for just over 16 years, because he began his managerial career in 2003. But he also said the other week that he had been learning English, for quite some time, in preparation for his potential move. But if Solskjaer was to be sacked, he would be the likely candidate, to come in next. But I don't think Solskjaer will be sacked as yet. I know there was reports the other week saying if we fail to beat Norwich, then either Solskjaer fears getting the sack, or he could put his job in serious jeopardy. That's what it said, and it did reveal how much it would cost Man United. I think it would cost the club around, it said around 7 million in compensation, to get rid of him, which is around half than what we paid to get rid of Jose Mourinho. Because don't forget, we paid around 19 or 20 million pounds to get rid of Mourinho. But Solskjaer, obviously he's our fourth permanent manager since the Alex Ferguson era, and I did say, we haven't really got the structure to keep sacking managers, because taking into account that we're not really known for the sacking football club, despite the fact that we've sacked 3 managers already since the Ferguson era. Obviously, David Moyes got sacked after he served 10 months at Manchester United. He's actually the manager that's had the shortest tenure with the club since the David Moyes era. Since the Ferguson era. It was actually Ferguson that recommended David Moyes into the football club, because obviously, they were both Scottish and that, and they got on well, and that was only the mistake Ferguson did make, was obviously recommending David Moyes in. Then obviously Van Gaal came in. He served like a year and a half for the club. He got sacked despite the fact he won the FA Cup. Then obviously, we recommended Jose Mourinho in, and I do believe, like I do keep mentioning, that the club did appoint Jose Mourinho in too late. He had a 2.5-year tenure at Man United, so he's actually been the longest serving manager we've had since the Alex Ferguson era. Didn't work out under Mourinho, despite the fact that he won the Europa League and the League Cup in his first season there with Man United. And Mourinho, like I said, spent a substantial amount at the football club. He recommended 11 players in, and Solskjaer now is still inheriting 9 of those players. But I already give you the reasons anyway why it didn't work out under Jose Mourinho. It was part of the bus football under Mourinho. The philosophy, his philosophy wasn't right at the football club. I think, the expectations were too high for him in that period. He had bad disputes with the board and bad disputes with the top players. The board went back in the signs that I wanted to recommend to the football club last summer. But I think, like I mentioned, we'll stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for now. And, a lot of money's been spent at Manchester United, in all the managerial eras since the Ferguson era. I think around 700-800 million pounds has been invested into the football club. And like I mentioned, reflecting on the money that's been spent at the club and reflecting on the size and the potential of this club, we should be much more commanding a position, than we're in now. Because we did expect now at this point for us to be much more of a commanding position. You'd expect us to be at least, be up there, fighting for that top 4. But even if we do beat Norwich today, you could still probably say, where that top 4 is gone. Could still probably say that top 4's gone, but like I mentioned, I think in the next 3 to 4 windows, our recruitment has got to improve, because the depth in our squad is not good enough at the moment. So, like I mentioned at the start of the video on that, do you think Kai Havertz from Leverkusen and Thomas Muller from Bayern Munich would be the right solutions for Manchester United? So now we're preparing to pay up to around £125 million for the 2 Bundesliga players. But we'll see what happens. So anyway, guys, drop your comments, likes below on the channel. If you do, consider subscribing as always, and take care. God bless, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.